Guess what, folks? The end is in sight, or at least the end of part 1 of the Worldsoul Saga. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, all the cope in one little package. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catch me live where I'm streaming. Patch 11.2 revealed itself this week, and we're off to space in a final patch that so far doesn't feel like a final patch, where we typically see the culmination of our efforts, the grand finale against the big bad we definitely knew we were going to fight. Okay, maybe some of us happen to get it right, but now that we know what we know, the vibe to me at least feels a little bit different. I'm going to give you a non-spoiler crash course to the War Within expansion that kicked off with the Radiant Song and a cinematic side sword. Dalaran got blowed up, and we're on the chase for Xal'atath that took us through a Nerubian kingdom. We chased a lead through downtown Goblin Land, and last we left our heroes, the recently repaired Darkheart MacGuffin thing was stolen by Ethereals, who posed as the bad guy authorities like, yeah, we're with her, and in Season 3, we're going to deal with the consequences of that. Now, just my opinion here. I'm not feeling the usual kind of, the build-up before the ultimate battle with the big bad, because there are so many loose threads and unfinished stories and questions left unanswered. And hey, even the basic lore bitch like me has got to bring up, hey, what about that lady from the opening cinematic? Are Thrall and Jaina gonna have an affair yet? What was that embassy build-up for? Have the Horde and Alliance really been hanging out on that beach this whole time? It gives the impression, and I don't blame gamers for being skeptics, that there was a lot of cut story content for reasons, and the writing is just bad, Chris Metzen did this and that, and so on and so forth. But let's refer back to the original announcements of the Worldsoul Saga.
The Worldsoul Saga is so epic, as we covered. It cannot be contained within any single expansion. It is built to play out over multiple expansions over the next few years.
Let's think this over a bit. The team wants to tell a story that can't be contained in a single expansion. Instead, it's going to span across 3, meaning we're moving away from a story that wraps up by the end of the 3rd season. In fact, if we take a big step back, yeah, we're approaching the end of an expansion that, like the same way we have for the past 20 years, but in a way, we're wrapping up part 1 of 3 of the Worldsoul Saga, this super expansion. I think it'll be pretty awesome if, big if, the Worldsoul Saga had us jump around between the zones of all 3 of these expansions, because the story and gameplay zips us from one spot to another. Imagine if all 3 expansions worth of zones had max level content by the time we get to the last Titan. So for those who are wondering what the Horde and Alliance are finally going to do, or what's going to happen with Beldar, that giant crystal, or what about the Rootlands, or the truth behind the Titan's influence on Azeroth, they're more than likely not forgotten. They're just seeds being planted, so we won't be surprised by sudden developments later, and these stories will culminate over the next few years. Today might feel a little bit awkward because we have these whole ass armies, and those aren't seeds. It's wood for them or Reyna or other big characters like Khadgar and Anduin and Thrall and Jaina to at least not move their positions and give a quick blurb to tell us what they're currently doing during the events of Undermine or during the events of Koresh. How are they or aren't they involved? For some, it's salt in the wound, when the characters that are more highlighted happen to be ones they're less interested in. And no matter what, the story still moves at this very glacial pace because, unlike other entertainment, some of us are here every day after the story is told, and then the story's kind of frozen in time while we wait for maybe an update every 2 months or so. I think many of you, though, are more emotionally invested into the story developments than I am, so I want to hear from you. There's quite a bit we've learned from this first patch 11.2 build, and as usual, I'm not going to do too much information overload. Instead, I want to spotlight the general flow as we know it so far, and add some extra bullet point commentary based on stuff we've learned from other articles and interviews and developer notes released throughout the week. Every now and then, I'm going to cut to cool pictures and models courtesy of Wowhead. We're going to Koresh, the shattered ethereal homeworld, through some easy quest hooks that are basically, hey, you're here now. The old dungeon Tazavesh is being built into the zone with one of its main areas as the player hub, with all sorts of little features, including direct teleports to more than a few delves. The questing is fairly robust, with 4 semi-long chapters that'll be available the week of the patch, with the final chapter accessible when Season 3 begins the following week. The quest will help lesser geared characters get up to speed, awarding what will be a mostly full set of Season 3 Explorer level gear. Alt will also be able to skip the completed campaign up to Chapter 4, but it doesn't seem to be a clean process in this first build, and we'll have better details later. Dotted throughout these floating masses is the usual round of rares and treasures and side quests, to which there seem to be quite a few, all to add more to a broken world many WoW players might not have heard much about. Flying is available right away. There's no unlock needed, although there is kind of a twist. As we progress through the campaign for the first time, we'll earn the Reishi Wraps, an artifact cloak that does quite a few things, but outdoors it helps us get around. Testing is still super early, but while using these wraps, you can activate these pads that'll kick off what they call phase diving. It'll take you into a different realm where you cannot mount, let alone fly, so you're basically phased into the maw. Count on there being a handful of desirable places to go in this realm while you're on foot. As an extra, activating these paths again will allow you to teleport to other paths throughout the zone, making travel very convenient even with flight in mind. I didn't see a whole lot to do with phase diving so far, outside of hunting down a wanted creature. Every now and then there seem to be these devour invasions, which I can't really say much about. I think they're kind of broken, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be one of those, those more usual public events. And in the announcement, they didn't hype up a feature similar to like surge pricing or the super bloom or some equivalent. We do get this feature called ecological succession, which in practice, it's less of a system. It was more like cozy questing, as in it's low stakes and limited combat. In this first build, I helped cultivate some bees, and completing this questline unlocked daily quests and a weekly, which awards the kind of weekly goodie chest we've been seeing. I'm guessing more world quests and other repeatable content can be found here via unlock. There was a lot to look at, but in this early build, not everything feels quite together yet. The very early impression I have is Koresh is a very complete feeling zone with some personal unlocks and plenty of rewards and cosmetics to pick up, with less emphasis on public content, but it's there. Of course, there's a new faction, the Koresh Trust. It's got 20 levels with all the familiar goodies, including some profession points, but this time includes an unlimited augment rune. Like previous runes, this one goes for 100,000 gold once you reach renown level 18. Speaking of renown, the raid-specific renown track is back again, offering speed boost, softeners to the raid skip, and more. What's interesting is this is being condensed down to 15 levels as opposed to the Galagio Club's 20. And for context, on live realms, we're currently on renown 17. The trade-off of the shorter schedule means the passive throughput increase, it only caps out at 15% instead of 18. The shorter timeline of 5 weeks is also very interesting. Assuming the season begins the week of August 20th, the renown will cap out the week of November 18th, a few weeks before the guesstimated launch date of patch 11.2.7. Super conspiracy theory here, but once again, this leaves wiggle room for a season 4 of The World Within on a very short timeline. So I'm basically talking like the 11.2.7 patch plus the pre-expansion patch being the 4th season. I know I bring this up a lot, but at this point, I'm like contractually obligated to be like the pro season 4 guy, and I'd be a flip-flopping bitch to shy away from that now. There's only a spattering of new profession recipes. Scribes, as usual, are getting hooked up with a new contract and a Vantis rim. A new healing potion recipe is coming for alchemists that's a substantial upgrade over the original. There's a new shadow meld potion recipe as well, more details on that in a bit. And tailors will be able to pick up recipes to support the new Reishi Wrap cloak. I did notice on the Raid Renown track there's a reference to other recipes, including something for engineers, but we'll have to wait for future builds for that, or for this text to get wiped away. There's a lean emote. It seems like it's just given to us. There's no quest or purchase necessary, and you can do it regardless of if you're actually next to any support. An image of this Void Demon Hunter has been making the rounds, sparking lots of speculation that Demon Hunters could get a 3rd specialization sometime during this upcoming season. Personally, I doubt it. Like, if we get Void Demon Hunters, hey, let's also get a season 4 of The World Within, so it would get like, good warm-up time before its actual debut in a new season of content, right? But I also have no reason to say that Void Demon Hunters are the worst idea either, coming from someone, who wants paladins to have 2-handed shields. Considering how we're neck deep in this Void stuff and the upcoming Midnight expansion suggests the recurring theme, I'd say it's definitely possible to see a kind of caster hybrid for this class, this time not being managed by the granddaddy Demon Hunter, Illidan Stormrage. It'd be kind of cool to see the Demon Hunters pivot away from their original mission after the Legion's been crippled for 10 years now or more, and we'll see what they're up to. The new delve is sort of testable, but at least so far I haven't been able to get any new curios, so I hope to get back to you folks soon on what's new in Delveland. In the meantime, I still got a few things to show you. There's the new dirigible model themed after the patch, as well as some new dialogue by Bran over at Delve HQ, who mentions a banner. I'm guessing at some point there's going to be a bit of competition between the Horde and Alliance as to who runs the most delves. The winner will have their banner hanging inside Delve HQ. It's not exactly the bloodbath some of you warhawks have been asking for, but hey, it's gotta start somewhere. On the Mythic Plus side of things, the devs are addressing racial imbalances by giving everyone access to the Night Elf Shadow Meld ability in the form of a potion made by alchemists. I just mentioned this earlier. It's a combat potion, so it still isn't optimal compared to being a Night Elf, but hey, on the plus side, you don't have to be a Night Elf. The bigger and maybe more controversial change coming this season is Blizzard finally developing something to punish those who leave Mythic Plus dungeons early while protecting the key holder if they're not the ones leaving. And this was talked about in an interview and not a dev blog or a build note, so we only got a high-level idea of what's going on. So basically, someone can initiate a vote to disband, and if the ayes have it, the dungeon will, I guess, finish, and it doesn't appear the key will deplete. I'm going to take a guess and say that if someone were to leave, the remaining members can still vote. My hopes, though, are that to protect the key holder, that they can initiate the vote even if everyone else had left on their own, like they're all alone, or they went offline, or whatever, and the key holder just didn't leave the group and kick people out. Hopefully they can still cancel their own key. As for the leavers, a system will track if you're, quote, leaving keys too often. If you do, you get a debuff. You get this kind of mark of shame that you're a frequent leaver, and groups you try to join can see if you have this debuff. By joining up and completing keys, you eventually wash this debuff off of you. It's a good start, if not for... Okay, actually there's a lot of things, but I'll settle for two things. First is that the debuff it's like the Scarlet Letter. Someone's going to write an add-on or a weaker that filters out anyone with that debuff, and that person is going to have no chance getting into a group unless that group leader was like really desperate. Because if a deserter joins a group, like what's to stop the other people from seeing that and then leaving said group before it starts, knowing that there's a leaver among them? Or is it maybe only the group leader who can see that? I don't know. The second thing, gamers are going to ask themselves what can they do to quit that run without getting that debuff. If logging off doesn't count as leaving, we're going to see these people like log off. They can call to abandon the run, and if they don't get their way, they can always just sit too and refuse to participate. They would leave without leaving. Outside of the rest of the group reporting that player for griefing, the leaver has all the immediate power, and at best, if they do decide to stick around to follow the rules and avoid punishment, now we might just have this miserable player who really doesn't want to be there. So obviously I'm a skeptic of punishing players, especially when it uses a sort of automated system to do it. I come from this very old and ancient gameplay style where, before a run, I talk to people and I ask them if they've got time to stick around even if things go bad. Now that does two things. One, it lets me know where everyone stands and I can filter people out. Two, and this is also very important, it lets everyone else know where everyone else stands. And if there's anyone who's not feeling confident, they're gonna leave. Which is nice because we all just dodged the bullet. We avoided what we would later tell people was a problem. So that's why I continue to advocate using community discords like WoW Made Easy and No Pressure, which helps to collect like-minded players with their own rules for levers, social solutions for social problems. Now, if Blizzard were to work hard at improving the community tool, as in raise the limit and give better moderation options, we would see a handful of big communities in-game dedicated to connecting people and aggressively weeding out bad actors. Give players good tools and they'll use them. Unfortunately, Blizzard hasn't done that, and instead they're going to try out this automated stick of a system, which I think isn't necessary. And in the long run, it's going to affect player behavior in what's likely going to be a negative way. So yeah, what a really positive thing to end things on, because that's the show. This week turned out feeling pretty packed, I gotta say. There's lots to do with the patch just coming out, there's plenty to learn about what's next, and we're of course one step closer to player housing. I gotta wonder though, once we get into Season 3, how stacked is the World of Warcraft going to feel as a game? Because There's the new season stuff and the Legion remix, and then there's that mysterious event Blizzard alluded to with the spooky environment, and the very likely early launch of player housing. Of course, not to mention all the hubbub of pre-expansion stuff like the alpha and the beta and regular coverage of Midnight. And of course, let's not forget WoW Classic pushing forward with its own agenda. We all share different interests and preferences, but it's hard to argue that World of Warcraft isn't full of activities that at least try to keep us entertained. But for now, that's going to be it. Let's give a warm thanks to everyone who joined us live, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube, and to our awesome patrons. Thanks so much for the support. And of course, hey, you viewer, you made it to the end. Thank you much. You felled the algorithm. Yeah, let's go with that. Now, if you could, like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.